Welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast from www.englishwithkirsty.com. Here I'll be sharing with you tips, information and other learning resources so that you can improve your business English. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 55 of the English with Kirsty podcast. I'm back now. I was away last week and now I'm back ready to record some more episodes, and I've got a new idea because I've been looking at the countries where people are downloading this podcast, and I know that the country where someone lives doesn't necessarily tell you what their native language is, but it gives me an idea about some of the places where people are listening to the podcast. You know, I'm a stats and spreadsheets kind of girl, and I find all that really interesting because it means that there's people behind these numbers who are listening to the podcast. So I've decided to do a series over the summer where I'm talking to either native speakers of a language who have learned English, or people who work with a lot of native speakers of a specific language. So we're going to have some spotlight on language sessions throughout the summer, because I've finally found some software that I'm happy with for recording interviews. So I will still be around at least every other week, but there are going to be some interviews in the podcast as well. And the other news is that English with Kirsty, the podcast, now has its own YouTube channel. So if you prefer to be on YouTube than to listen to podcasts, or if you have friends who are interested in learning English and who like YouTube, then the audio from these podcasts is also going onto YouTube. And I will put the link to the YouTube page on my show notes page for this episode, which is www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast/episode 55. Okay, so this week we're going to talk about language courses and group language courses, because a lot of what I do is one-to-one, working with people individually, getting them a tailor-made program for what they need, or I'm working on one of my courses but specifically looking at their requirements. But some people just really don't like doing that. And so I'm looking today at 8 reasons why learning in a group can be really good. So specifically here I'm talking about learning a course as a part of a group, but it also, some of these things also apply if you're talking about language learning or tandems or meet-up groups for a specific language. So 8 reasons. So the first reason is that the spotlight isn't on you all the time. So some people like the really intense one-to-one interaction with the teacher, but for some people that's just a bit too much, and they prefer being part of a group because you also have time to listen to other people, to think about what you want to say, and not to be constantly the one who has to answer questions from the teacher. So it helps people to relax sometimes if they're not the only one who has to answer questions or give their opinion. Number 2, you have learning partners who are working on the same material. So it's nice if you can talk to somebody who isn't your teacher, because you know the teacher's probably going to have other things to do, but other people in the group you can meet up, go for a coffee, or if it's virtual, you can learn together, you can talk together, and you're not having to explain to someone what you're doing because they're doing it as well. So it's people that are working on the same maybe worksheets or the same kind of discussion topic, and you've all got the same vocabulary, so you can do some extra practice outside of the classroom if you want to, and you don't have to do any of the groundwork explaining, it's all there. You can take part in group discussions because you can have a dialogue with the teacher, but if you're in a group then it's a whole different dynamic because you're listening to more than one person, you're having to follow the conversation. Sometimes group discussions are more fast-paced than single one-to-one discussions, and it also gives you the opportunity to listen to other points of view, so that's always good. Number 4, sometimes it's more like the real life situation at work, because you may have a lot of one-to-one meetings, but you may also be working collaboratively with people, having to find solutions to problems together. And if you're doing that in a group already in English, then it will be easier to do that in English at work when you have to work with multiple people, like customers or peers or colleagues or suppliers or whoever. If there's a meeting with lots of people, then working in a group will help to prepare you for that. Number 5, you can work together on group projects because the tasks that a teacher may set you. If you're in a single lesson, then they will be your tasks and you'll be doing them on your own. Whereas if there are group projects in a group lesson, then you're working with other people and it can help you. You can get inspiration from them, ideas. You can share out the tasks according to what you are good at or what you want to practice. So it helps because the teacher doesn't usually work with you on an actual project or a presentation or something like that. Number 6, you can improve your listening skills because when I work with people, I try to bring listening material into the classroom because I don't just want people to be listening to my voice. I think it's important that learners are exposed to lots of different voices and accents and dialects. And so working as part of a group means that you do have to train your ears to listen to different people speaking English. Number 7, you can learn from the vocabulary that people use. People may use new words that you haven't heard of before. And you can also learn from their questions because sometimes people will ask questions that you hadn't thought of, but when they're answered, you learn as well. So, or maybe you don't want to ask the question and someone else does, but other people's questions are a really good way to learn sometimes because they bring new ideas in, or there are things that you maybe hadn't thought to ask but that will help you. And finally, it's usually cheaper. So I'm not saying you should judge a course by its just how much it is and you should always go for the cheapest option. But for some people, they genuinely like learning with other people, and so group training is definitely for them if you would rather be in a group with lots of talking and activity going on. But also, if one-to-one training isn't in your budget, then a group training course is a good way to get the training at a lower cost. And on the subject of saving money, if anyone is interested in joining the club, the English club, you can use the code Giraffe92. It will be on the show notes page. If you use that when you're booking your first month, you can get £5 off your first month. And just as a recap, the club starts in September. So you can already get your place now, but the first training will start in September. And there is a group training session every month. So I talk about something and present information to the group. And there's also a Facebook group where you can talk to other learners. There are 2 group sessions, one in the daytime, one in the evening, and they're conversation sessions. So the idea there is that people can get together and practice their English. I will help. I'll write down any new vocabulary and share that. But it's really an opportunity for people to get some speaking practice. So those sessions aren't recorded. The training session is recorded, so anyone who can't make that will be able to watch the video. And there's a task as well, so that's more individual, either a writing or a speaking task that you can choose to complete if you want to, and send it to me and I will give you individual feedback, tips on how you can improve your English. So it's a monthly club. You can choose to stay for longer if you want, and it's cheaper if you do buy more than 1 month in advance. But if you just want to check it out and see what goes on, then you can just come for 1 month. And as I said, if you use the code Giraffe92, then you can get £5 off the first month. So I hope that was gave you some things to think about in terms of learning with other people and how that can be beneficial, whether you want to be part of the group or whether you want to find something in your local area where people are speaking English. Those are some of the benefits of working in a group. So have a good week and have fun learning English. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. If you have any questions or comments, my email address is kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can go to www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast, where you'll find information about the individual episodes.